Hello and welcome to the New Jersey Association for College Admission Counseling College Fair. We're so excited to have you participating in this event. This is the panel discussion on representation in writing inside the college essay for LGBTQIA+ students. We're so excited to have you here with us today. Before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. My name is Jenny and I'll be your facilitator for the evening. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. However, you can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the schedule on the website. This presentation is being recorded and will be available at strivescan.com/New Jersey. That's strivescan.com/New Jersey. And I'd like to turn it over to Michael from Lesley University to talk to us about the LGBTQIA students and the college essay.
Thank you so much, Jenny. So thank you all for attending. My name is Michael Cartusiello. I am an Associate Director of Admissions at Lesley University. I formerly worked for 6.5 years with Adelphi University, and I'm also currently serving as the president of NJACAC, those folks who are sponsoring this college fair. So I'm really excited to be a part of today's event. It's been really important to me that we're able to put this on and provide this information to you all. And I also like to talk about my history. Also, I don't think I mentioned my pronouns. My pronouns are he, him, and his. And I like to talk about my experience in the industry because I've also personally been reading applications for 7 years. I've probably read several thousands of essays, maybe 6,000 to 7,000 at this point. So I'm well versed in what makes a good and a not so good college essay. And I'd also want to highlight that this process is challenging for everyone, whether you are LGBTQ plus member of the community, questioning, thinking, whichever, or not. There's a lot of challenges in terms of writing this type of essay, since it's really unlike any other essay you've written before. And of course, being someone who's in the LGBTQ plus community, it can present additional challenges or come with additional questions. And so I'm really hoping to just add that lens, but also go over the best practices for representing yourself in your writing and going to college. So first things first, what is the college essay? And it is, as I mentioned earlier, the essay that is really unlike anything you may have already written. It is a very open-ended essay that's really ultimately, as I say here, it's about you, right? We want to see you showcase your writing ability. We want to kind of get an idea of how you've overcome obstacles, express your opinion, tell a story. This is your chance to really add information in and give insight to the admissions counselors reading your essay about how you may impact the community should you attend that school that you're applying to. So it's very important. It's very broad, but it's also very personal. So this is a winning combination, especially for a queer person when you may have a lot going on when thinking about your identity, or maybe it's an advantage too. So the essay prompts on the common application, I pulled these directly from the website. I believe this is what should be for the 2022-2023 application year. There are tons of prompts here that kind of give you suggestions, things you could potentially write about. So some things here, reflect on a time where you questioned or challenged a belief or an idea. What prompted that thinking? What was the outcome? This is a pretty relevant prompt to some stuff we'll be talking about later, or maybe kind of talking about something that someone has done for you that made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. Presenting a story about your identity or talent or interest. These are all great prompts. But if we look at the last one, which I've emboldened for us all, it's share an essay on a topic of your choice. You do not have to follow any of these. You can follow as many or as few as you want. You can really write an essay about anything. So it kind of makes it scary that the prompt is this broad. So it's going to require you to do quite a bit of brainstorming, and you're going to want to brainstorm many essay topics. Really take some time, think about what it is that makes you unique. What is it that you're passionate about? Those experiences you've had throughout your life so far that were really impactful, some lessons that you've learned. A tip I also like to add is you could even talk with your friends and family and kind of ask them, what it is they think about you, that are your strengths or weaknesses or unique traits. Kind of think about, okay, if a naive reader was going to read about me, what is it that I want them to know about me? And so definitely plenty of ways to keep organized. Maybe it's the old-fashioned list of essay topics. Maybe it's creating a visual vision map, an idea board, just an outline. There's lots of things you can do to really brainstorm these ideas. And again, this is really where your identities can become a strength as long as you're comfortable with them. Every student needs to really soul search and dig deep down into kind of who they are. And for those of us who have come to the understanding of a big part of our identity from sexual orientation or gender identity, you may be kind of ahead of other people, knowing that this is something that is unique to you, is personal to you, and you're able to talk about it in an essay. So before we continue, I always like to go over the common pitfalls in topic choices. So note there are exceptions to every rule. So while I will tell you to try and avoid doing this, you can do it. There's always a good way to do it, but many, many students fall into these traps and then they end up being not so great. So a big one is the athletic essay. It has been equally applied to dancers, to performers, to artists, but typically something physical and competitive. And sticking with that athletic theme, the essay typically will go something like this. It was the bottom of the ninth, and I was brought in to pitch. The score was tied, and I needed to close out. And the essay continues on to talk about the smell of the grass on the mound and the sound of the bat when the bat hits the ball. And they spend all this time kind of talking about the competition or the game or the performance itself. And only at the end do they say what happened. The other player hit a home run and then they won the game. And so the student who lost learned it was okay. And that's it. It's only in the last sentence. Don't do that. Firstly, lots of students love to talk about their sport. So it's not really that unique doing an athletic essay. Secondly, and this ties into actually the second pitfall, which is a descriptive essay. When you spend so much time talking about a story that doesn't show us how or what you've learned, you're losing the point. We want to get more of your ideas and opinions and how you can express them. Sure, describing the event can give us an idea of your writing ability, but it's not going to give us your opinion and showcase your growth. Some other pitfalls, talking about that unique service trip you took. Maybe it was to Costa Rica, maybe it was locally, maybe it was just a community down the road, maybe it was another city in America. But it could be anything along those lines. And sometimes those are really impactful stories. But many times students just like to talk about, look at this cool trip I went on. And that's the pitfall. Don't get stuck on, oh, look at this cool trip I went on. Talk about why it was important to you and what you learned from there. Same thing with that meeting the person that made you happy, right? Hopefully you choose someone that impacted you in a surprising way for a longer period of time, or again, thinking about that it impacted you. I've read many essays at this point that it's typically someone was a camp counselor and they met little Jimmy at summer camp and they only spent 3 days with little Jimmy, but gosh, he changed their life. And the whole essay ends up being about Jimmy. And again, not about how their lives changed post Jimmy. So I hope you're starting to see the pattern here too. Also, rehashing your resume is another common pitfall. We do think it's the common misconception as well. I need to kind of brag about myself, right? And so there's this idea that you may have to fit all of your accomplishments in one essay, and you don't. Include a resume in your application instead, or fill out the activity section of your common application. I have absolutely read essays that are, I like to sing, I like to dance, I want to go here, I've done this, I want to study animals. And it just continues on, and it's one, not well written, and two, really a waste of time. It doesn't tell us anything substantial about you. there's also kind of a tendency for some people to um, write about the passing of a family member that isn't in their immediate family. It's usually very removed. They maybe only met them once or twice, but because it's usually someone who doesn't really know how that would impact them that ends up focusing too much again on, or maybe it is someone that impacted you strongly, but don't focus too much on your grandmother. Remember, the essay needs to be about you. Um, the last big pitfall, and this is a pretty big one, it's writing about your school of choice without being prompted. Um, I I would recommend that you should not make any assumptions about your reader. Understand your reader in your college essay is going to be naive, but the one exception to that rule, the one assumption you can make is your reader already knows about the school they work for. You don't have to explain the program of choice. You don't have to explain the activities that you've drawn to for your general essay. There are certainly supplemental essays where a college will ask you to say why so and so, why this school. Then you can talk about it. But what I've seen on the Common App is people like to say, and like when I was working at, while I'm working at Leslie, and they'll say, and that's why I want to go to Boston College. We're not Boston College, so it looks really bad. People forget to kind of change that on their application. So just, I would say, avoid that entirely. So the coming out essay, to come out or not to come out, this is where, again, your identity is, in my opinion, a huge strength towards giving you an option for writing about your essay. You would think it has become more and more common, which has been so amazing for me to read, because I just really resonate with these. But it's really not a trope. I don't think it's a gimmick, and I don't think it's as you know ununique as the athletic essay, because everyone's coming out journey is their own. It's always going to be this unique story that only you have really gone through. It may be similar to others, but you have your own unique perspective. You have your own obstacle that you've overcome. You may have had to challenge the beliefs in your religion or the ideas that your family held about you. And that is exactly some of the prompts that college folks are looking to read about you. The challenge is, maybe you're not done comprehending this journey. Maybe this journey has not finished. Maybe you're not done challenging those beliefs. And a lot of times it can be hard to sit down and soul search and reflect on a very sensitive and personal issue that you still haven't fully resolved. And that's not something you should put yourself through either. You do not have to come out in your essay if you don't want to. Your sexual identity, your gender identity, or truthfully, any identity you hold is only just one aspect of you. It's not all of you. There are absolutely other essay topics you can write about that might be better to talk about who you are right now. But if you have kind of moved forward, if you have been able to resolve certain feelings and overcome the obstacle of what it is to then live publicly and live out loud, it can be a really fantastic essay. I do want to draw your attention, though, to the additional information section. Sometimes, your coming out story may have affected your grades. Maybe while you were coming out, or it's still happening. You were not really, you experienced depression, or you weren't accepted by your parents and you were kicked out of your home. Or those are some of the more extreme examples, but it could really just have been experiencing severe anxiety, depression. And if it affected your grades, this is when I encourage you to come out on your application, but only in this part. Don't make your whole essay about that. But you do want to shed light on, hey, my grades dipped during sophomore year because I was experiencing anxiety due to this. I went and got help. I started seeing a counselor, and my grades improved. Great. That story is something an admissions counselor will see match in your grades. But giving us that additional context is always so helpful when we're trying to paint this well-rounded picture of who you are. And maybe you don't even feel comfortable making that mention yourself. Maybe you are not out to your parents yet, and you don't want to put any mention of that on your application, that they're overlooking, that they're looking over your shoulder while you're completing. Do know that there's many other ways to kind of add additional information and additional context to your application if you feel it's necessary. You can work with your school counselor and they can ensure that they're sending an additional recommendation letter or any letter of support on your behalf where they include some of that information as to why maybe your grades dipped or your attendance dropped. And again, you're also welcome to email the admissions counselors directly at a time when maybe you're not working with your parents. You can kind of work with your school counselor together to draft an email from you explaining all of this. The admissions counselors are really, for the most part, we don't want to keep you out. We want to continue to look for reasons as to why you can get into college, why you will do well at our community. We want to look for ways to bring you in. So all the additional context you can provide is beneficial. So you've brainstormed, you've planned, you've thought about it, you've come with hopefully a couple ideas that you can go in a bunch of different ways. So now it's time to start writing. And my best advice for that is to just do it. I personally used to always just kind of spit out my ideas on the page. You start with an outline and then you go back and you build and you build and you build. But there's so many other ways that you can write it. Like even this style is unique to your own. But the thing you have to do that's most important is just do it. So some tips on specifically writing your essay. An introduction, 2 to 3 supporting paragraphs, and a conclusion. It is a tried and true formula, and I can't recommend it enough. It works for a reason. Like I said, I don't recommend doing that descriptive essay. We want to hear about something you've learned about yourself or in life and obstacles you've overcome. And so in a way, you're kind of writing a mini thesis paper about yourself. Your first paragraph, your introduction is absolutely going to talk about your main point, like why and what you're trying to tell us and why. And then of course, give us some supporting information and then round it out with, and this is how I've grown. Additionally, you've probably heard, oh, you need a great hook. You need to catch them. Counselors are only spending seconds on your application and they're not going to read it if your first sentence isn't great. We are reading quickly, but we're reading. We are absolutely looking through your essay. We're not just looking for only a good hook and that's it. Don't sacrifice your introduction paragraph for pizzazz or for uniqueness. That's not really going to help. The best thing you can do actually is having a better ending. You really want to end stronger than your start, because again, that is where the reader will leave fully understanding your point, fully understanding your story, and fully understanding your journey. And I'll share an essay that still stuck with me for a really long time. And like I've said, I've read over 1,000 essays, but one of the ones that I really remember, it goes along with that there can be extraordinary in the ordinary. So again, sometimes you're looking for that unique trip or that unique hook or something that feels really rare and superficially special. But a student whose essay I read, she was a very family-oriented person. And she just wrote her essay about how important having dinner every day at the table with her family, how important that was to her. And the whole essay was just about how they can live all these chaotic lives. And her dad worked at a hospital, and her mom was a teacher, and her sister had lots of things going on, but every day they took the time to talk to each other. And it showcased absolutely that she was a family person, and these were her values, and there was nothing. It was very ordinary. It was just talking about dinner with her family. But again, it was such an impactful essay because it was so well done. So don't think that you have to write about that one rare random experience, or the way you write needs to be like you're writing an adventure novel. You really just be true to yourself. Be honest with yourself. And also, as you are writing, in being honest with yourself, your essay might change. That's okay. You may start writing about your coming out journey and then realize it's bringing up some emotions you haven't dealt with yet and you're struggling to finish. Stop and change topics, change your essay. Or maybe, you had one topic and you're fleshing it out and you're realizing that's not actually what you want to say. This is going to turn into just a supporting paragraph of a completely different idea. That's great. Let it evolve, let it evolve on paper or on your computer screen. Don't be afraid to really go in and out of your topics, and let it kind of flow organically. So proofread. You've written your essay, you finished your essay, this is great, but I can't emphasize enough, everyone, myself included, we all make mistakes. You need to proofread your work. Proofread it personally. This is a really important essay. And that goes along with that whole, remember when I mentioned name dropping a school and then they forget to change it on the Common App? That's another form of proofreading, and it happens a lot. So don't just do it yourself. It's really, really important for this essay that you actually have someone else take a look at it. I certainly recommend it could be a parent, a teacher, or if it is a more personal topic and only your friend knows about it, you can ask your friend for help. Grammar and spelling are very much important, but context is just as important here. And so your friend, who may just be as grammatically intelligent as you are, can still be that naive reader for you, and just read your essay to make sure that they understand what you're saying, that your point is getting across the way you think it's getting across. Sometimes when we're writing about a story that we're so intimately familiar with, we're leaving out details because we've already made the association, but your reader hasn't. So make sure that you're getting your reader from point A to B to C to D. Another thing, reading your essay out loud is a great way to proofread yourself. We'll often be skimming in our heads, and our brain will process what we think we meant if it's a very similar mistake. But as we go to read it out loud, suddenly we're catching certain things where we can hear how it sounds awkward, or maybe you're jumping and in context. And so it's another great thing you can do to make sure that you are proofreading yourself. So with that, this is kind of ending the tip portion of my presentation. And so I want to just recap some of what I feel are the most important parts. Please don't forget that this essay is about you. It is something that should be really focused on one of the many aspects of who you are. Your identities are absolutely a strength when you're thinking about writing an essay, but if it's something that you are still coping with or struggling with, please don't force yourself to put that on paper just because you think that's your best chance at getting into XYZ college. Definitely know there's ordinary in the extra, there's extraordinary in the ordinary. See, everybody makes mistakes, and there you go. And know that you don't have to come up with something extremely extraordinary subjectively just to be special. You can absolutely talk about something that seems ordinary in your life and make it unique. In fact, while going over that, I'll share another essay example. One of the prompts on the Common App one year was to describe your bedroom. And that is also a recipe for a disaster of a descriptive essay, not really telling us too much. And I read several essays truly about Justin Bieber and Jonas Brother posters on their bedroom wall, and pink fuzzy rugs and the alarm clock. And that didn't tell me very much other than that they were a Justin Bieber fan. But one student wrote an essay under the prompt of describe your bedroom. And he was the oldest of 5 children, and his mom was a single mom, and he was still fortunate enough to have his own bedroom. And his other siblings were sharing 2 rooms. And for him, he described his small 4 walls with the books he had there and the time he was able to spend there as his solace in his very chaotic life. And that was just, again, another phenomenal essay, that exception to the rule of maybe don't do that topic. No, he did this topic so well, just describing his ordinary bedroom, but he was able to showcase his family obligations and responsibilities and maintaining a part-time job and being dedicated to helping his family, all by writing about his room. So you can absolutely find the extraordinary in the ordinary. There's always exceptions to the rules that I've just kind of laid out for you. Be honest with yourself, be true to yourself. Don't be afraid to ask help, and definitely proofread. So I do want to open the floor to questions. I know that we, could absolutely have some questions here, and I could also, provide additional examples or stories if you want. I've also included my contact information at the bottom. You are welcome to email me any questions anytime. I'm really happy to help out, even if it's just provide a suggestion or advice on the direction you want to go with your essay. I'm actually going to stop sharing briefly because I don't think I can see the questions, but I can put my information back up if questions do pop up. Well, since we have some extra time and there aren't questions yet, and I know some of you folks may be watching this at home, and if that's the case, what I'll do is I'll put that final screen back up, and I will make sure my information is there. Great. I can share some of the other both good and bad essays that I've seen and some other pitfalls. So firstly, there's another stylistic tactic that can work, where maybe you start your essay just one more step, and it continues to go on about how you're in the middle of a camping trip and you're climbing a mountain, and the person who wrote it was like climbing a mountain, and that's his intro paragraph, and starting the reader in the middle of your story can hook them in. And of course, just talking about how in the first paragraph they're trying to climb a mountain, they're going to then relate climbing the mountain to overcoming some other obstacle. And it's a pretty standard stylistic example, but you can kind of turn that on its head or kind of copy the same thing where you start out with a moment in your story. And maybe it is that exception to the rule about the athletic essay. You want to talk about that moment in a basketball game where you were finally put on the court and we're like about to see what you're going to do. But then you start backtracking in the next paragraphs, talking about how important it was for you to get better at basketball growing up, or how you put in the work ethic to practice. And again, making that essay about you and your story, and then kind of coming to the conclusion of it led me to this moment, all this stuff happened, I learned so much, and this showcased my growth. So that's I think a good stylistic tip for some people if they want it. I also, you could start off another essay was a student who his father was a diplomat and he traveled a lot. And so in his intro paragraph, he talks about all the places he's traveled. And so it's kind of a list that I said to avoid initially, but it wasn't the whole essay. It was just the first paragraph kind of talking about, I've been here, I've been there, I've been here. And then his kind of thesis statement is the most, like, I hadn't experienced anything like I had until I finally moved to New York. And we then know, and it's all about kind of learning what home can mean. And so now the intro paragraph set up, okay, here's our little context. Now let's see what he learned while he lived in New York. And that's what the rest of the essay sets up to do. So certainly some great examples you can do there. There's a lot of different things you can do. I've also seen an uptick in students being the ally to their friend who's come out. And that can also be a great essay, especially if you're learning how to become a support system for someone else. Just remember, make sure there's equal focus on who you are and not just the essay about your friend and their identity journey. So on that note, I'm still not seeing any questions. So again, please feel free to email me, mcartusc@lesley.edu. Happy to help out whenever, for those of you at home who may be watching this again. And otherwise, thank you for attending. And I don't know, Jenny, if you want to pop on and do some housekeeping, like closing housekeeping.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation and being here today. And thank you participants as well for joining us this evening. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 5-question survey. So we'd appreciate any feedback that you can provide. And we encourage you to check back to the schedule and sign up for more sessions that are happening today shortly after this one. You'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all of the other session recordings at strivescan.com/New Jersey. That's strivescan.com/New Jersey. Thank you so much. Have a great evening and best of luck on your college search process.